Hello, everybody. Welcome to We Need to Talk Now. We are live following Team USA's first ever She Believes game with a huge 2-0 win over Colombia. And I am joined here by Jenny Chiu, who knows all things soccer, the beautiful game, as she likes to refer to it. And Jenny, welcome. I love when you come on the show because I am not a soccer girly. I like to refer to myself as a casual. So I learned so much when you were on the show. I know everybody is going to learn so much. Before we dive into it, though, just want to remind you all to make sure you're subscribed, following all of our social channels, notifications on YouTube turned all the way up. So when special episodes like this drop, you are the first to know. And then also scan this QR code if you are a podcast listener. We will happen to pop up wherever you get your pods. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple, so there's no reason to not be tapped in with us right here at We Need to Talk Now. All right, Jenny, let's get into the nut of this thing. Initial reactions to the match.
Well, before we get going, Ashley, I just want to say you're calling yourself a casual, but I've listened to you speak basketball, and I know you're definitely not a casual. I can't even keep up with what you're saying because that is your expertise. So please,
my expertise, yes.
All the respect in the world for the basketball conversation. This is the one thing I can talk about. So yes. I'll take this W and this compliment now. No, I mean, I think we were really excited to see this Emma Hayes side. Obviously, winning the Olympics was massive with her at the helm, and a lot of changes. You know, when she came in for the Olympics, there was no time to really make that many changes. It was, all right, let's get the result. And they did that. And now she's implementing her plan. She talks about her phases and all of the different press conferences that she's had. And she's taking us along with her on this ride, right? Knowing that we don't have any major tournaments. She's kind of explaining everything all the way through and telling us what phase we're on, what we're doing, what she's planning on doing. Right now, we're in the broadening of the pool and giving opportunities to younger players. She's talked about having the U23 camps and what that does competition-wise, and then just making sure that there is kind of a streamline of players that are ready to play for the U.S. women's national team in case anything happens, right? We've had that in the past where people get injured and there's no one next. And so she's fixing that issue. And I think it's really funny because my fiance, who I live with, was listening to the press conferences. And he said, I've never listened to a coach give so much information. That's Emma Hayes, right? Like that's that's the phase she's in. And she's very open about it. She answers every question for, 2-3 minutes. And you don't really get that kind of openness from coaches all the time, especially not national team coaches.
Yeah.
It's fun to see where she's at, and she's very upfront about what she's doing. So she's not playing any games behind the scenes. If it's working, if it's not working, she's going to let you know. Yeah, I like this. I didn't like that. And I think that, us as media appreciate that kind of directness and knowing, what is the plan here? What's the direction we're going in? And is it working?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely super refreshing. And I was texting Emma a little bit because she was helping me, talking me through the match as well. And the first thing I said, so we came into this game, I'm assuming, as favorites, but has Colombia have always been this kind of, I don't want to say a bad team, but it just seemed like it was a very lopsided match in terms of performance. Obviously, the last time the U.S. women's national team won against Colombia, it was 3-0 in the W Gold Cup. And that was a chippy game. We spoke about that. That was a big game for Alex Morgan. We were kind of talking about that before we went live. But what was your make of what Colombia looks like this time around versus last time around?
Interesting because, yes, so the U.S. women's national team has never lost to Colombia. So when you're making the comparison, yes, this is a game that the U.S. women's national team should win and should be dominating. Yeah. But when you think about that W Gold Cup game, that chippiness that you talk about that Emma was mentioning, that was a huge game for Alex Morgan because she had come in as a replacement player in W Gold Cup. I covered all of the matches on the sideline. And her ferocity, I don't know if that's the right word, but her intensity, her aggressiveness in that game changed everything, right? Because you needed that from this U.S. team, and it allows them to get the win eventually. That's not the case here. So today, we're not really talking about the physical aspect is what led them to the win, and you're not seeing this fierceness from the U.S. team that we missed and wanted to see. That it was still in us. This was more of like the technical, tactical side of things and people getting their first few caps. One of the things that we talk about often is Emma's giving new players opportunities to showcase themselves, giving everyone, a fresh slate. So we saw multiple players getting their first start. Alicia Sentinor getting that goal on her first cap with the national team is massive.
Yeah.
Terry Mikiyan as well on the back line. I think that one of my takeaways is she can do better moving forward. But I think one of the bigger things that I took from it is Emma Hayes talked about when you come into the women's national team, it takes about 6 caps for you or 6 camps for you to kind of feel at home and get your feet under you. So when we talk about Tara coming into the back line, mind you, a sans Naomi Girma back line, you don't have that leader that you're, looking to and will give you everything. No offense to Emily, but what I'm saying is no Naomi means you got to figure out that back line a little bit differently than
right.
you do. And Colombia knew that was someone who hadn't had experience there. I feel like Linda Caicedo going up against her she's going to go against anyone and beat them and make them look silly. So for what it is, the backline did okay, in that aspect. I guess we can go a little bit more into the backline, but for me, I know we're going to dive deep, Ashley, into the other conversations, but I think the biggest takeaways is Kat Macario. I'll let you lead us into it, but wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things, obviously, defense is something that we can obviously dive into, but Emma makes a good point. I mean, they did pitch a shutout, which is a big deal considering there were a lot of adjustments that Emma was kind of making on the fly. And sometimes when you're making those adjustments, you expect to give up a goal, maybe even 2, even if you are going into it the favorite, even if you are going into it the more talented team. I think that that's something that's very enlightening and something that's very, if you are a Team USA fan, is just something that you can get really excited about, that there's so much talent, so deep in this roster that Emma Hayes really has a really good eye for kind of pulling out and figuring how to bring the best out of each player. Shutout's a big deal.
Oh, absolutely. It's not that we expected Colombia to score many goals on us, but people were making predictions. Like when you have players like Mayra Ramirez and Linda Caicedo on Colombia's side, Lacey Santos, they can obviously create things on the attack. Yes, right. The U.S. women's national team is going to score, but can Colombia get a couple here and there with that attacking talent that they have? And they didn't. So yes, that is an absolute success. I think that for me, consistently, Emily Fox is just always strong. She has that experience. She did incredibly well. One of the bigger takeaways for me that is worth talking about is Jenna Neiswanger on that left side. I think that her ability to go back and forth defensively to offensively and put those balls in, she has a really good eye on offense. I just really, really like her in that outside spot. So for me, the outside backs are a standout in this game. And the fact that we get the shutout is awesome as well, Ashley.
Yeah. I mean, biggest standout for you overall? I mean, obviously there were so many people doing a bunch of different things to make this successful. We already mentioned a few names, but if you had to label it to just one, who would that person be?
I want to say Alicia Sentinor because you don't have like your first cap and have the kind of performance that you have and the golazo that she scored. Mind you, if we're just going to get into the goal because I already kind of previewed it, we're not. That's a goal we've seen from her a few times. She has that in her locker. She has that rip. Ashley, when someone can, I'm going to try to make a basketball reference. Bear with me as I'm. But like if someone has, Steph Curry has a 3-pointer, he has that 3-pointer.
Yeah.
Alicia Sentinor has that.
Yeah.
Alicia Sentinor has that shot in her bag, and she brought it out in her first cap with the national team. I mean, absolutely beautifully done. And I feel like she's going to have a long career with this national team. She gives me like Amy Rodriguez vibes. Gosh, that's not going to make sense to you. Sorry. It's funny because she plays for the Utah Royals, and Amy Rodriguez was Utah Royals coach for the beginning of that. So I don't know. Emma, our producer, Emma, probably is like either nodding or shaking her head at me right now, and that might maybe didn't make sense.
She's saying yes. She's saying yes.
Okay,
Emma, feel free to hop in with your voice from above wherever it is.
That would be funny. Like, I agree. That was a dumb comparison.
Let's talk Kat though, because Emma is in the chat saying, let's talk Kat. Let's talk Kat. Made her tournament return. Was the 2022 SheBelieves Cup MVP and tore her ACL shortly after in June of 2022. So in the past 3 years has really just been struggling with the lingering issues of that injury. We know an ACL is a nagging injury, even when you completely heal from it, and was initially named to the U.S. women's national team Paris Olympics roster, but later had to pull out. Now, her goal against Colombia is her first for the national team since April 12th, 2022, 2 years and 314 days. I mean, I love a good comeback story. I love a good comeback story.
Absolutely. I mean, Catarina Macario is one of the players when we initially saw her play, we were like, okay, that is our new number 9. That is number 9, number 10. We'll see what exactly she plays, but that is a talent through and through. And we're so excited to have her on the team. And then obviously, things happening with her knee and stuff were devastating, right. But you knew that she had that talent. The question is, can she come back from an injury like that? That's always the question with specifically that injury, right? The ACL, sometimes the player can come back, sometimes they can't. To see her get the goal today, and not only that, she had a couple of good moments where you're thinking, okay, that's the Cat we're used to seeing. And then to see her come off the field as a substitute and the hug that she had with Emma Hayes, who she played with at Chelsea, was so special because that comeback. I mean, give me a reference that in basketball, because that was
we've seen it. I mean, we've seen it with Klay Thompson, and sometimes you don't come back the same type of player, right? The thing that makes you ferocious, the thing that is, the thing you can always rely on, especially if you're talking about a soccer player or a basketball player, somebody who really relies heavily on their speed, their agility, everything having to do with your legs and your knee. An ACL can make or break your career. It can completely change the trajectory of your career. So to see somebody go through it in multiple ways for such an extended period of time and come back, it was definitely, you don't have to be a diehard soccer fan to see the beauty of it. That was a special moment.
Absolutely. I'm glad you caught it, because to know the story too, and to see the struggle of being left off and then being called into the Olympic team and then not, and then having to pull out because of a knee injury. Oops, sorry. Knee injury again. I mean, that's just devastating. And to finally be back is wonderful. I mean, it just makes you feel good inside. It really does.
Well, listen, we gotta talk some roster spots, standout talents, and just expanding and evaluating the talent pool. Now, the last few rosters have featured a growing number of new players to the national team. As we all know, Triple Espresso is a name we're all kind of familiar with at this point, and if you don't know, you better know. Now, they have not made themselves available, which has allowed for other players to get some time to shine. Now, Emma Hayes did say that she's doing more experimenting, like you said, with the roster and calling this Block 3 in the team's plan to lead up to the 2027 World Cup. Now, obviously, it looks like there's an increased emphasis on player development because of the fact that the names that everybody's kind of expecting have not made themselves available, at least not yet. Now, what stood out to you basically post-Olympics and in this game and previous camps that you've seen? And you've already spoken Emma Hayes' praise in being able to evaluate talent pool, but what is it specifically that has kind of stood out to you the most about the talent that we've seen so far?
I mean, I think that the willingness to bring in new players and to give them opportunities right off the bat, and we talked about them already, but that's not something you had seen with the U.S. national team in the past, right? They were people that were in with the team and through, whether they were performing, whether they were injured, whatever it was, they were always going to be in. And other people really didn't get an opportunity to break into the team for years at a time. I think Yasmin Ryan getting some time and showing what she can do. I'm not saying this was her best game. She does amazing things. And I think that her work defensively is something that we have to kind of take a look at and be like, okay, you have to remember the work defensively that she's doing as well. She's going to continue to grow as a player. She's young. She's newer. But the fact that she's willing to play these players and give them the opportunity to mess up. Again, I say, Emma Hayes said it's going to take you 6 camps typically to get into the flow of things. That is grace. You're giving people the ability to make a mistake and not feel like if the one time I go out there and make a mistake, I'll never get a chance to play on the national team again. That lets you breathe a little bit, and you need that, right? We talk about Triple Espresso not being here. whatever the case is for all of them to be out, for them to be out, they feel confident in the communication they're having with their manager to do so, to opt out, right? And that might be something or signs of a healthy relationship, right? Because this is something that you need. We talk about load all the time in women's football, especially with the ACL tears that we had kind of already mentioned, Ashley. You need to focus on load and whatever mental health stuff is happening, or if you need something, whatever it is, having that open communication with Emma seems like it's happening. And I think that is a positive that we have to talk about.
Yeah, Emma spoke on the roster not having top players, and she said, quote, "We don't have a World Cup today, and my job is to prepare a team to compete come that period. We have to provide players the opportunity." She said she wants to make it, quote, she wants players to make it, quote, "impossible to do her job because they're all playing so well." And an interesting stat here is dating back to December 2023 when Hayes was first hired, 17 players have debuted in a 14-month span. So that's an amazing statistic.
But that shows you that she's not just talk, right? She's willing to back it up and give players chances, give players opportunities. And that's what we need, right? Because the US is so full of talent, but I feel like for a long period of time, it was these are players, and we saw it. We saw it with Cat Macario. We saw it with different players. When you have a big injury before a tournament and you have no one in streamlined for this player's next, you're in a very difficult situation. And Emma knows that, and Emma knows from experience that you have to have, okay, something can happen in the days leading up to this, and you better have a plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E. And she's making sure that we have that built out.
Yeah, when you talk about experience, you always think about age and things like that, but that doesn't bother Lily Johannes, a generational talent, 17 years old. Every time we talk about her on this show, I have to mention her age because, Jenny, when I tell you what I was doing at 17, it wasn't this. It was not this. I mean, she had some extremely just key passes tonight. It is a privilege being able to watch her play. Like, I am a fan. It is mind-blowing that she's not even 18 years old yet.
It's so funny because I have some friends over, I guess, like watching the game, and they don't know as much as I do, right? So they're like, "Oh my God, did they just say she's 17?
It's
like,
crazy.
Did they just say she's 17? I was like, yes. I've watched her play with Ajax. We know what she can bring to the table. She plays way above her age. She's a mature player, very skilled. Just quick background. She had the ability to play with either Netherlands or the United States, picking the United States. You now see her starting this game. So absolutely incredible stuff. And that's what we need in the midfield. She's very crafty, very smart, very intelligent. You won't see her like running that much because it's like happening in here. Like she's in the right place at the right time and she doesn't need to do too much. It's exactly what you need in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we have Ali Center going to be so good. She had her first women's national goal. Just an absolute banger. Emma was texting me like, what a goal. That was crazy. It was a beautiful, beautiful goal. Now the interesting thing is, in the face of, the women's national team and just figuring out that roster and solidifying it, it's who's going to become the next starting goalkeeper in the wake of Alicia's retirement now from the international games. So just 2 goalkeepers have been called up for She Believes, Jane Campbell and Mandy McGlynn. Now, her last name was Hart. She did get a divorce and she's now back to her maiden name. So for people who are like, I don't know who that is, it's back to her maiden name. Who do you think is kind of like in the prime position to obtain that goalkeeper position? It is definitely going to be an adjustment period for sure.
For sure. Losing a goalkeeper like Alicia Nair, we always knew this was going to be difficult to ever, try to replace or, placeholder anything after her because of the incredible years that she had with the team. But Emma Hayes, coming into this game, talked about how Jane Campbell was the most experienced. She had, I think she has 9 caps with the team. She has the most caps out of the goalkeepers. And I am a huge fan. So let me just be like as transparent as possible. I'm a Jane Campbell fan. And for a long time, I've been saying that she needs an opportunity. She's always been like 3rd goalkeeper in different camps. So most of the time she's sent to the tribuna. So like to the stadium stands because a 3rd goalkeeper is really not going to play.
Yeah, right.
And I've always felt like her NWSL career and her stats and the performances that she's putting up deserves at least a chance. And I felt like something that maybe we didn't do as well, which now Emma Hayes is doing, is giving those opportunities to those players to make sure that we have someone, coming up. So I don't think that Jane Campbell got the chances and opportunities that she did to show her stuff. And now I feel like this is her opportunity to really step up. I will say that after this Colombia game, you don't leave with any more answers,
Right.
They didn't test the goalkeeper. This wasn't a game that was going to give you, okay, that's our starting goalie. Look at those amazing saves. Absolutely, she's the one. Emma Hayes has talked about how she wants a goalkeeper that can play with her feet. She wants a goalkeeper that's kind of able to do all of the things, almost like an extra player on the field. You don't get to see that in a game like this. There's just not the stops. There's not the ability to kind of need her. But like I said, big fan, have always felt like she needed another opportunity or an opportunity to show what she could do for the U.S. national team. And I know you have a different opinion.
Well, let's talk about Jane Campbell real quick for people who are unfamiliar with what her resume looks like thus far. The 2024 NWSL season, 25 matches, 39 goals, 77% save, 1.56 goals per 98 clean sheets. And then in her 2023 season, 26 goals in 22 matches, including 10 clean sheets. Her best season to date, had 5 U.S. women's nationals starts dating back to 2021 in 8 total appearances. So a nice little hearty resume there for her.
Well, before we move forward, sorry, I know you're going to get to another goalkeeper here,
go ahead.
but when I say that I'm a big fan of Jane Campbell, I played with her. So when I was with the youth U.S. system, I watched her play. I saw her train. I know what she brings to the table, like firsthand. And then seeing the kind of year that she had last year kind of added to that kind of admiration for this is maybe next in line. Obviously, Alyssa Nair, you can't take her out of the equation until she takes herself out of the equation like she did.
Right.
But just saying, like, there's something about the aura that she brings that I didn't know why she didn't get an opportunity for this long. I'll let you go. Sorry.
Well, another name in the mix, and this is a name that Emma's also thrown in the mix, and that's Fallon Tullis-Joy. No U.S. women's national appearances for her. In 2022, the NWSL season was top-ranked keeper stat-wise. Played 14 matches so far this season, ranked second in WSL, 6 goals against, 0.42 goals per 80, and almost 90% save percentage and 9 clean sheets. So conceded the fewest goals of any goalkeeper in the WSL, ranked first in save percentage. So when you talk about having a tough job of having to decide when the time comes on who is going to be the new goalkeeper, Emma Hayes has her work cut out for her. But I feel like that's a good problem to have. I feel like we would be having a very different conversation if there wasn't enough talent to choose from, and if there wasn't this much opportunity for people to get their moment in the sun, if you would, things like that. So while it's difficult because there's so many names and so much potential and so many opportunities for people to showcase that, like, they belong here and this is why, it's good to have the problem that we're having the conversation about right now.
1000%. I think it's important to mention that transfer to Manchester United is massive for a player so young. She has, I think Emma Hayes described as the tools to be world-class, which you can see that from her body type. I mean, I know that sounds weird to talk about, but she's a goalkeeper that her presence is automatically felt and seen, and she has the ability to jump. You'll see. It doesn't make sense when I say it like that, and I don't want that taken out of context. Like, when you watch her, you'll see the physical presence that she brings.
Yeah, of course.
It's completely different.
Well, Emma Hayes did say that her shots, this is a direct quote, said her shot stopping and ability to cover the frame as second to none is what she assessed it as, but noted that there is room for improvement in building up with the team. That one thing she doesn't have is really the exposure and the experience when it comes to the national team, ranks and things like that.
Well, what I kind of read from that is that maybe the on the ground stuff she might not have. So I don't know. Okay, so I'm taking the same quote we're both reading here, and she might have the shot stopping ability and the athletic ability to make those big saves, but then can she play out of the back with her feet? And Emma has expressed a desire to have a goalkeeper that can play with her feet. So we'll see about that one.
Yeah. It'll definitely be interesting. We're gonna switch gears a little bit, and this is actually gonna be a conversation right up your alley as a newly engaged woman. There is an interesting debate happening in the world of soccer, specifically the U.S. women's national team, and it's about players changing their last names. Now, there's, like I said, something that has been in the discourse for a while, and that is the team's biggest stars changing their last names in the wake of being married. Now, for the first time, Lynn Williams and Lindsay Horan are playing under their married names. So, Emma, how do we say this last name? I don't want to butcher her new married name.
It's Biendolo.
Okay, Biendolo. Say it one more time. I can't remember.
Biendolo.
Got it. We'll go with what Emma said. And Lindsay Heaps. Now, Sophia Smith, meanwhile, has similarly taken her new husband's last name and will be Sophia Wilson moving forward. Now, players have changed their names in the past. Mallory Pugh became Swanson after getting married. You have Julie Ertz. Obviously, we all know her husband plays in the NFL. Alex Morgan and Carly Lloyd both kept their maiden names on their jerseys while using their married names in private. Now, some are questioning the decision, citing marketing and branding opportunities of some already established names. Sophia Smith actually took to social media and wrote this, quote, "Oh my, this take is so boring. Why do so many people have opinions about something that does not apply to them? We all need to find a hobby. Okay, thanks, bye." That's in response to somebody calling out.
Wait, I love that. Come on, I love that.
Meanwhile, Lynn also spoke to the women's game, saying, quote, "So I originally wasn't going to. I think that my married name is amazing and incredible, but I've always thought like Williams. This is like an ode to my family and my dad." But it was her dad who actually brought up the change. She said, quote, "When I was having my father-daughter dance, we were just dancing and talking, and he brought it up. And it's like, I think you should change the name on your jersey. He said that this is the family you choose to be in, and Marley's an incredible person. So I think you should just change your name." How do you feel about this discussion?
So I kind of agree on the marketing aspect. I've always felt this way, and I don't know if it's like this. I don't know if it's a limiting belief on my end. That when we have this conversation ourselves, right? Because you come into notoriety in some sort of way with your name. So I am engaged, and I've had these conversations with my future husband. And a big thing is, I want to keep my name, but I also do respect that, like, I love you and I love your name too. And so we are doing, I'm saying Jenny Chiu. His last name is Zini. So Jenny Chiu, which I think is funny, and it's going to sound great. And like, you can laugh about having a panini or something after. So it'll be like, it just rolls off the tongue.
And it does roll off the tongue. Yes,
Jenny Chiu. But I've never had any pressure to like change my name or whatever. I just think it's great. He wouldn't care if I kept it. On my end, like as a broadcaster, I think it's very hard when they change their names, and like it's a little bit of extra work, and the players might think, "Oh my God, Jenny, stop!" Like that's so silly. But it is kind of hard, even today. Not saying Lindsay Horan when you've said Lindsay Horan for 10 years. Lindsay Heaps, Lindsay Heaps. Like you have to, like, it takes a second. It just takes a second, right? And that's their decision, their choice. But I think that marketing wise, and like the fact that you've built this up, that's just my opinion. I don't want to lose the Chew, because I worked hard for all the things that, but it's definitely a personal choice. And like Sophia said, is like, everyone needs to get a hobby. This is such a boring take, but like, just personally, I don't want to lose mine.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like we've seen hyphenated names. I think of Beyonce Knowles Carter or Gabrielle Union Wade, or when Kim Kardashian was Kim Kardashian West. I mean, we've seen the hyphenation in terms of, highlighting that you are married, that there is a new name, that you are part of a new family. Your family is now grown. But I mean, a lot of people still call her just Kim Kardashian. And I think that it's okay to maybe, if you want to change it. But you also have to understand that when you, like, to your point, have built such a notoriety around a name that people are so used to, that there's going to be opportunities and situations where people are just going to refer to you by your maiden name because that is what we were introduced to you as. It's hard habit to break.
1000%. I think a good example of that is Mia Hamm. Mia Hamm getting married, like Mia Hamm, Mia Hamm, like you've known Mia Hamm, and then she gets married to, I think, a baseball player, Garcia Parr, I believe it. Please don't kill me if that was wrong. But, and all of a sudden that's like on stuff, and I have no idea who people are talking about when they say Mia Garcia Parr, because it's like in my brain, it's in there as Mia Hamm. So I like the hyphenated aspect. That's what I'm doing personally, but you know what? When they tell me that they're changing their names, I work really hard to make sure I don't get it wrong on a broadcast ever. Like, okay, it is now Lindsay Heaps. It is now Sophia Wilson.
I do think it's interesting when you meet an athlete or you get introduced to an athlete that's already married when they come in, and then, like, God forbid, they get divorced. And then they go back to what their maiden name was, but you never knew them by their maiden name. It's like, well, I don't know who this person is. Like, 1,000%. I don't know what you want me to do here. Like, and it's like, you don't want to keep referring to them as their married name because they're no longer married, but it's like, I don't know you. Like,
see, that's a bigger conversation. And I will say, and we're not going to have the conversation, but I just want to bring up, like, just questions. I want my husband to also take my name. So, like, I know that you don't do that. Okay.
The girl from Spy Kids, her and her husband, I'm forgetting her name, but her and her husband have each other's last names.
Oh, see, that's
and they took both of them. So it's like they both have, and their kids have each other's, like, both people's name. I think that's innovative. I don't mind it.
I want him to take mine. That he hasn't agreed to that one. He's like, Chuzini is fine, whatever makes you happy. But I was like, I think
Brad Pitt did it too when he was with Angelina Jolie, and the kids are Jolie Pitt.
Oh, see, I didn't think about the kids part yet because I'm not there. But now they're going to be Chuzinis as well. Look at what you just did, Ashley.
Listen, thank me later. Guys, and if you are getting married as well, you can thank us later too, because we just gave everybody watching this and everybody who will watch this a heads up for either your immediate future or your future down the line. You can thank us later. See, we don't just talk about sports. We give sound life advice on this podcast. I want to thank Jenny for joining me. I want to thank everybody for watching. And if you missed any bit of this episode, don't worry. You can catch it in full on YouTube. Make sure you are following us on all of our social channels. And as usual, at the end of the show, scan this QR code and we will pop up wherever you get your podcast. Have a good night, everyone.